Stay focused on mission. Stay focused on mission. Today I'm going to get personal. Actually, quite personal. We're talking septic tank here. Yeah. Not all my stories come from distant, like 2 weeks ago, distant past. This one happened this week. We live out in the country about a half-mile west of Pocahontas State Park. And in 2018, the end of that, we bought our property, our house, built in '79. And then we moved in early 2019. And we were told when we moved in, every 5 years, the county, Chesterfield, will send out a card or notice, email, etc., that we would be due to have our septic tank pumped and inspected. If you're doing the math, yeah, we're about a year and a half overdue. So we found out since that they stopped sending out those cards. I suspect that may say something about their enforcement as well. But anyway, we figured, there's just two of us there, we figured we should do this. So we call up, we look up in our files. We actually do keep papers like that. My wife, much more so than I. She's really good at it. And we call up the outfit that did the inspection on our house. Now, they did it before we actually bought it or lived there. And so we were not there when they came. Well, we asked, and they were going to come out and do the inspection and pump out the septic tank. The distribution box, I'd been told. And sure enough, this Monday morning, D, I won't give his name away because, he's not going to look too good later on in this. So I'll just say the initials D. D is in, well, whatever. And he showed up Monday morning quite well. And I went out to show him where I thought it would be. It became very clear he did not know where it was. He was not told anything from before. And he had a rod with a handle on it, and he would poke around till he hit something concrete. After a while, we talked, and what they do is they just keep poking. This thing is supposed to be 4 feet by 10 feet. So if you hit something concrete, you can hear that touch, that sound that it creates. Well, he starts poking around when there's an obvious little drift in the backyard, and no, not there. Makes a wider circle, keeps pumping. Eventually, comes across what he thinks is a pipe that draws from it, the drain field. Keeps working. Works a while back. I'm out there with him. And he's obviously increasingly frustrated. In fact, he says, well, it's usually faster than this. And then later on, after he pokes some more and punches a bunch of holes, he says, I've never had it go this long. So I say, well, can I help you? And he says, maybe it's deeper than I have this 2.5 foot probe. And I look, and I don't have anything appropriate, but I do have a post hole digger. So I start helping. My yard right now in the back, if you remember the movie Caddyshack. A little hole there, here, there, yeah. And we go on, and D is getting increasingly frustrated. Now, we have examined the fact, I've reminded him, that this house slopes down from the street, probably changes 10 feet minimum down from the street. And behind that, there's a creek about 100 yards out. I know because I've run electrical cord out there before. And it's at least 20, maybe 25 feet below. So if you can see it sloping down in the middle of the house, and it keeps going about a third of the way, and it keeps going down. The well is up in the front. Therefore, we know the septic has to be in the back. He goes around, finally gets frustrated to the point he has to call his boss. He says, I hate to do this, because he'll come out and he'll find it right away, and he'll look bad. So, okay. He says, excuse me, he says, I'll be going about 10 o'clock by that time in the morning, and I'll come back about 1 o'clock with my boss and one other helper. 1 o'clock comes. No D. I'm kind of sad about this because Dee and I had kind of a relationship going. It was a good one. We had time because we had poked all over the backyard at least half an hour. 2 o'clock. No D. 3, 4, no D. So I call at 5 o'clock. The office, of course, is closed by now, and left a message. By the way, do you know sometimes when people call, and they'll tell you later on they called, but they don't leave a message? That's not helpful. That happens later on. Woman calls back the next morning, and she says, your distribution box is under your porch. You'll have to take it apart or we're not going to come and do it. Strike number one. I was with Dee during this time. We went up and followed perhaps a pipe and went to the edge of the porch where we had to crouch down and I took my post hole digger, made a hole. He thought it was there, but it wasn't. It was another false alarm. And I said to her, no, that's not happening. So she goes on, and it's become obvious to me that Dee lied. And what happens sometimes when people get uptight and they're in front of their boss or with some other authority, they get anxious. He was already anxious when he left my property. And so when people get anxious more and more, their thinking goes down as the anxiety goes up, like a teeter-totter. Thinking goes down as anxiety goes up. And remember, I said this sermon is about pursue the mission. Focus on the mission. When you get to the spot where Dee was, and he's talking to his boss or the administrator back there, he knows he's in trouble now. So what's he going to do? His anxiety is way up, his thinking is way down, so he lies. As I said, strike one. Then she tells us that any time their employees go out to a site to work with a septic tank, they've already looked it up and they know where it is. Strike two. Then my wife tells them again that they were out there 6.5 years ago. And at that point, she says, Babs reads from invoice number 8572, dated November 23rd, 2018, quote, unsuccessful to find box with camera. Had to bring equipment to find. Babs points out there's one of two things that are true here. Either they had not prepared, did not look, or they're just lying and they never really did service it. At this point, after Babs points out that we're holding the invoice and the date, she says, oh, you were out here. Have you ever been to a doctor's office and you can't really see the doctor's face because all they're doing is this? Yes, doctor, and I'm starting to grow a second head. And they don't look up the whole time. They're not listening. And if they're not listening, you got to wonder what they're typing. But that's the way it is. Stay focused on the mission. Prepare ahead of time. Listen carefully. honestly communicate, and then act. Jesus did that. He's in the synagogue, not the main temple. This is one of the extra ones. A synagogue, separate church, if you will. And he's there on the Sabbath, which would be Saturday for them. And a woman comes up, she's bent over, can't stand up at all, really. Just kind of bent over like that, like my friend. I have a particular friend like that all the time, after numerous back surgeries. And she's been like that for like 18 years or so. And he heals her and suppresses the evil one and goes forward. Now, Jesus stays focused on the mission. He observes, he's prepared, he takes time to pray. It doesn't say that in the text, but that's kind of the thing that Jesus does. He finds if you're going to have really effective relationships, power, anything, you have to communicate honestly and listen and effectively communicate together. And he listens to this woman. He hears her situation, which is not good. And then he heals her. But the leader of the synagogue ignores all that. He doesn't listen about this woman's situation. All he could do, because now his anxiety is way up, this itinerant preacher has just come in and healed a woman. So what does he do? The pointing of the finger, which we'll get in Isaiah in a minute. You came and healed did work on the Sabbath. You came and healed on the Sabbath. That is wrong. It is against our traditions and laws. He totally ignored the spirit of the situation. And I would have liked to have been there. Sir, how many people have you healed? Any this week? Any this year? Any? And I think we know the answer. 0. And so instead of celebrating the great moment that God has acted in their presence of using Jesus, his son, he's accusing Jesus by reverting back on the law and the traditions. He loses focus. He's far more into cover your butt, or you could replace the word, because that's what my friend Dee did. When all else fails, you cover your butt and you forget about the mission. That's what the leader of the synagogue did. Well, he accuses Jesus, and Jesus points out his hypocrisy because he's prepared, and points out you still service your animals, this, that, and the other day, and yet you would have this woman continue to be hurting. At the end of the conversation, the administrator finally, after she said, "Oh, you were here before," says, "Well, I'm just the administrator." Cover your butt. Forget about the mission. In Isaiah, we have a situation. 58 verse 9b starts with, "Then you shall call," wrong one. "If you remove the yoke from among you," and that would be a harness that is to weigh down an animal, "and the pointing of the finger," which the leader of the synagogue, I suspect, did, "and the speaking of evil," if you remove all that, and he names the sin, then he goes on, verse 10, "If you offer your food to the hungry," here's an alternative. Not the blaming, not the sin. "You offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted." Then it goes into blessing from there on. Verse 11b says, "Your garden will ever be watered." Keep in mind, this is like Las Vegas. Our national church just had the assembly out in Las Vegas. I said, "You do that in August? You've got to be kidding." Picture a place that's arid like that, where there usually is no water, and he's talking about water always coming. Blessings. Then he goes on, and it says the ancient ruins will be rebuilt. He's talking about back in the 700 BC's, 8th century BC, when the Assyrians came in and leveled the place, destroyed it, made it look like Gaza, and deported a whole bunch of people. And you're going to reset things. Now here, we have our own version of that. We did raise up the ancient ruins when we fixed the septic tank out there. I can relate with this. When you did, that was great. Verse 13, it does the same cycle again. They stay focused on the mission. They name the sin, the problem, they deal with it, and they celebrate in praise. At Christ Lutheran, you are not lost in lies. And you are not allowing yourselves to be caught up into anxiety. Because if you were caught up into anxiety, you would not be free to carry out and achieve and to challenge the problems and to address them and to find ways. And because of that, you have not lost your sense of mission. You have not allowed yourself to be so caught up in the anxiety that you become more concerned about covering your butt. You're staying focused on the mission. And that mission is very simple. Asking the questions, what can God do with us in this time and in this place? Let us stay focused on the mission. In Jesus' name, amen.
Christ Lutheran Church